Today, I am starting a series on intoxicating drink and addiction, and this is part one. Uh, so, intoxicating drink, I'm just going to have that under the umbrella of wine, but that would include like cocktails, different forms of alcohol, spirits, things like that. So, wine, in summary, it's created by God. Ultimately, it has its origin and source in God through the grapevine. So, and I think it's considered a tree. Like God created every tree that's bearing fruit. So the grapes that come forth from the grapevine and the alcohol that gets produced from it, that the wine, ultimately, that has its origin and its source in God. And since this is like a fruit of that tree, it also testifies of God. Fruit bears witness of the tree. Water bears witness of the fount that it came from. Words testify of the heart that they sprung forth from. So God spoke creation into existence. So everything we see in creation can testify of the invisible God, the origin and source that they came from. And this is also the case with wine. It testifies of God. Like here, Psalm 104, he causes grass to grow. So this is about God's works in creation. He causes the grass to grow for the cattle and vegetation for the labor of man, so that he may bring forth food from the earth, and wine, which makes man's heart glad, so that he may make his face glisten with oil, and food which sustains man's heart. So God in creation, his works in creation, he created wine, which makes man's heart glad. And that's a good work of God. That's a good work in creation that he created. He created this substance that has the capability of making man's heart glad. Also here in Acts 14, this is Barnabas preaching the gospel to those in Lystra. Preaching the gospel, calling them to turn from vain things, empty things, things that don't profit, things that don't satisfy. He's calling them to turn towards the living God. And he did not leave himself without witness, in that he did good and gave you rains from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness. So again, like, these are the works of God in creation, and included in that is wine, which has the ability to satisfy our hearts with gladness. Put gladness in our heart. So joy and gladness, I think they're like synonyms. Ultimately, God is the source of joy and gladness. It can be imparted directly from him. If you have like a union with God, you can receive that directly, or it can be imparted through means such as wine and marriage. So God can impart joy directly, or it can be through different means. Brethren can encourage you or give you a word that makes you glad, a good word, through wine, through marriage, through these different means. And if people have like remaining sin and corruption that keep them from having like a full union and communion with God, well, it's like he has to go through these different means to bring people joy, because he can't dwell with them directly because of their sin and corruption. He can't dwell in that temple, so he has to go through all these secondary and tertiary means. So Psalm 4-6, you have put gladness in my heart more than when their grain and new wine abound. So that's kind of like shows the connection with wine. And then like Song of Solomon, chapter 3:11. Go forth, O daughters of Zion, and gaze on King Solomon with the crown with which his mother has crowned him, on the day of his wedding and on the day of his gladness in heart. So through wine and through things such as marriage, you can receive joy and gladness. And it's not wrong to want to derive joy and gladness through marriage, like ultimately it comes from God. It's not idolatry to say like, oh, I want to accept this gift from the Lord, knowing that it's going to bring me joy and gladness, but acknowledging God as the source. It's not like a spouse directly. It's through your spouse that joy comes from the Lord. Same thing with wine. Yeah, so wine and like people, their definitions of like what's sin and what's drunkenness and like what's tipsy. Like wine which makes man's heart glad. Like wine is supposed to have like a change in your disposition, a change in your inner man, an elevating effect of your inner man, raising your spirit. It's making you glad. It's adding gladness in your heart. It's elevating you. It's raising you. It's bringing joy. So like wine is supposed to have that effect on you. So if people want to be nuanced with like alcohol content and what's drunkenness and when it is, I guess they can be the judge of that. But wine makes man's heart glad. It's supposed to have that elevating effect on the inner man, raising their spirit. But people abuse it, like with any substance. And I think the abuse comes in, it's like when it's duration or when it's the amount. When you drink in abundance or when you drink it for a prolonged period of time. I think that's where it crosses the line and goes into substance abuse. If you're misusing that resource, using it for the wrong purposes. Like here, Proverbs 23, those who linger long over wine. Yeah. So I think that's where it becomes sin, when you're abusing it because of duration or amount. Like ultimately, like wine gives revelation of God. God created wine, and it's like, oh, when we partake of this substance, we experience this elevating effect in our spirit. And like, we shouldn't continue to seek joy from that substance, but when you experience wine, that should cause you to seek the joy that comes from the Creator. Like wine is a veil, and it's like, oh, when I drink of this wine, I experience this effect that, makes man's heart glad. Like if wine is this good, like imagine how great the creator of wine is. So by experiencing and tasting and partaking of wine, that should cause you to want to partake of God, partake of his spirit, to seek him, knowing that it's going to be greater. Like if this work, if this small form of creation is so great to my inner man, like imagine what it is having fellowship of God, being filled with his spirit. So if you like wine and the effects that it has on you, well, that should drive you to want to partake of God, to partake of his spirit, to have union with him. Psalm 16:11, you will make known to me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. So like through wine, it's like we could have portions of joy and gladness imparted into our heart. But in the presence of God, there's fullness of joy. So it's greater. If you like wine, you're going to love its creator. You're going to love God. In your right hand, there are pleasures forevermore. And like here, like in Acts 2, on the day of Pentecost, when they were filled with the Holy Spirit, it has similar effects. Like they were filled with the Holy Spirit. There was probably gladness and rejoicing. They were speaking in tongues. And the people who didn't understand what was going on, it's like, but others were mocking and saying, they are full of sweet wine. So they appeared like intoxicated or drunk or just, having a rejoicing, a gladness of heart, that people thought that they were drunk because they were experiencing fullness of joy through union with God. So it's better. It's better than wine. And it's like entering into the presence of God or being filled with the Spirit. It's like the same concept. It's just describing it in different ways. Like entering into the presence of God, it's like you're being raised up, you're being elevated. You're like being free of the sin that's like weighing you down, the corruption that's like keeping you from, being able to enter into the presence of God. And entering his presence is done by like being filled with his spirit indwelling you. Yeah, so it's two different ways of describing kind of the same thing. So wine is good, and it's good to partake in a way that like makes man's heart glad, but ultimately that should drive you to seek joy and gladness in the Creator, as opposed to perpetually seeking joy and gladness from like a bottle or a glass or from that substance. You should seek it from the Creator. So those who are suffering from like addiction to wine and substance abuse and alcoholism, I understand. This world sucks. It's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of sorrow. We all want to be free of it. We want it all to end. We want to escape it. And it's hard to live in this world when it's like suffering and evil is abundant. We all want revival. We all want to be free of our sin. We want the Lord to return. So it's like, I understand if you're in that ditch. And I think some people, like people who say just stop drinking, they don't understand. And I wouldn't listen to them, and I wouldn't allow their words to affect you. When you're an addict, you're in a ditch, and you're in chains and shackles, and you're not able to break free of it. You're not able to just stop. It's like with any sin. You're in a ditch. You're in bondage to it. You're in chains. You can't just stop. So I understand. So if you are suffering from like alcohol addiction, alcoholism, or even like food addiction, or like being addicted to like other forms of means that like satisfy your flesh that you want like fulfillment from, I would seek to put your trust in the living God to deliver you. He has the power. He's able to set you free. He's able to break those bonds. He's able to free you from that form of captivity. The living God is able to bring deliverance. I've seen it. So I would put your trust in the living God to deliver you. And then also align yourself with God and your will with his will. And when you're fighting temptation towards like wanting to go to that substance as a means of reprieve and joy and gladness, I would fight that temptation by actively seeking to bring joy and gladness to others. Like if that substance has you captive because you know that it'll bring you joy and gladness in some way, and it's like, well, no, I want to seek the joy and gladness from the living God. Well, to bring yourself in alignment with the living God, it's like you need to perform his works towards others. So like God brings people joy. So I would seek to bring people joy and gladness around you. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, put your trust in the living God to deliver you and align yourself with God and your will with his will. And turn your focus to bringing gladness to others and raising those who are poor in spirit. And that's like an act of faith. God is able to deliver you from that form of bondage. And as an act of faith, it's like, well, you see how, like, these are the works of God. You know, I want God to be my deliverer, so I'm gonna, it's like when you see the unseen God in his works and you perform them towards others, like that's an act of faith. It's like imitating the works of the unseen God. So when you're intentional on imparting, you know, bringing gladness to others around you, that's a expression of your faith. Like those are the works of God. So when you do those works, it's an expression of your faith in God, that you trust him, that he's going to deliver you from, you know, the corruption that you're in. And it's not just alcohol. It could be, you know, any other sin. Yeah, it's an expression of your faith in God that he'll deliver you from that form of bondage. And you might think, well, maybe I don't have a lot of resources. How can I bring joy and gladness to others when I don't have an abundance of resources or money or things like that? Well, you can use what you have. Just offer up what you have. If you have a TikTok account and a For You page that's relevant and you see a bunch of videos, like you can make a lot of people, you can bring joy and gladness to a lot of people through that by sharing funny TikToks or memes that you think that they'll find humorous. Like here, this is my friend Brie. She knows me. So she sent me this meme. Be careful how you tell your side of the story. And it's like this girl with all these screenshots, like, I have evidence, I have records. And then this was my response. I'm thankful that you know me, know what will make me laugh, and you have me in mind when opportunity strikes. It's godly when you make someone glad. And yet he did not. Yeah. And then I quote Acts 14:17. And she says, thank you for your encouragement, sister. I appreciate it. Yeah. So if you're intentional about making others glad around you, it's like through that work, you're partaking of the divine nature. You're doing the works of God. And through partaking of the divine nature, it's like that's how God imparts his spirit. And then it's like by being filled with his spirit and being made joyful and glad through, being made joyful and rejoicing through union with him and doing his works and doing the will of the Father, it's like that will bring deliverance of seeking joy and gladness from like empty things of this world. Yeah, so offer up what you have. And then I put Luke 21, the widow who only had like 2 small copper coins. This poor widow put in more than all of them, for she out of her poverty put in all that she had to live on. So you don't need like a surplus or abundance, but if you only have like meager means, well, how can you bring joy and gladness to others with the means that you have? Like God sees the heart, God sees the effort, and he'll reward that. Yeah, by doing the deeds of God, you're conforming your will to his will and partaking of the divine nature. This is Isaiah 55, 1-2. Ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come, buy and eat. Come, buy wine and milk without money and without cost. Why do you spend money for what is not bread, and your wages for what does not satisfy? Listen carefully to me and eat what is good, and delight yourself in abundance. So doing good to others and conforming your will to the will of God and doing the deeds of the Most High, it's like that's how we partake of the divine nature. That's how we partake of God. So like here, Luke 6, love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he himself is kind to ungrateful and evil men. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. And do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Pardon, and you will be pardoned. Give, and it will be given to you. They will pour into your lap a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. For by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. So I would focus on your enemies, those who hate you, those who mistreat you or abuse you, ungrateful men, and evil men. That's what I did. And God will bring you joy with being filled with His Spirit. The fullness of joy that comes from entering into the presence of God. So focus on those and seek to do good to them. Seek, how can I make them glad? How can I encourage them? How can I feed them, clothe them, by doing the good works of God towards those around you. That's how you partake of His divine nature. And then by being filled with His Spirit, He'll bring deliverance of all the other things that are weighing you down, the sin, the addiction, the bondage. That's how I would fight alcohol addiction or any sin that you're in bondage to or enslaved to. And like with self-control, I would start, like maybe people have, so to have self-control to refrain from like partaking too much of alcohol, or maybe you don't have self-control over your body in some way and you want to satisfy those desires. Any type of like addiction and, seeking joy and contentment and fulfilling your desires that are leading you astray from God. I would start by taming the tongue. So here in James 3, if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able to bridle the whole body as well. So if people have if they struggle with having control over their bodily members and exercising restraint, I would start by taming the tongue. That's the hardest thing to tame. And then once you tame that, you have self-control over the whole body as well. So I would start there. Here's James 3, 5 through 12, talking about the tongue. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come both blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not to be this way. So I would focus my efforts on restraining from cursing men, insulting them, falsely accusing them, saying like, you're insane, you're crazy, you are fill in the blank, you good for nothing. Cursing men, speaking evil to their person, I would refrain from that. Like Jesus, when he was reviled, he didn't revile in return. When he was threatened, he uttered no threats. So I would seek to control my tongue and not have it not be a source of speaking out evil against image bearers. James 4, do not speak against one another, brethren. He who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge of it. Who are you to judge your neighbor? So I would refrain from speaking against one another. And then also arrogant boasting. Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So saying like, oh, tomorrow I am going to do this. It's like you're making this declaration of confidence, like that's going to come to fruition. And it's like you don't have control over that. Like, Lord willing, we will live. Like, we can't even control whether or not we live tomorrow. like all of that is in the hand of God. So if I would, don't speak evil and make confident assertions about tomorrow, about things that are going to come to pass. Because if they don't come to pass, like that means you spoke falsehood, So Lord willing, these are the plans. Yeah. So self-control with taming the tongue. Do not speak falsehood. Do not falsely accuse. Do not curse men. Do not speak against a brother and judge a brother. Do not speak arrogantly. And do not swear. Like James 5:12. But above all, my brethren, do not swear, either by heaven or by earth, or with any other oath, but let your yes be yes. But your yes is to be yes, and your no, no, so that you may not fall under judgment. So I would seek to tame the tongue, speak accurately, like have a precision of your words, where it's like, if you hear like a report and you want to transfer that report to someone else, instead of saying like, oh, this happened, I would say like, oh, it was reported to me that this happened. So yeah, seek to tame the tongue and have like an accurate, truthful speech. And when you're able to do that, you're able to tame the whole body as well, because it's not a source of evil. So if you're able to control your tongue and have it not be like a source of evil, it's like you're resisting the devil, and then it's like your other body parts and members won't be a source of evil as well. And if you're a religious Pharisee who takes confidence that they're right in the eyes of God because they're not suffering with alcohol addiction or drug addiction, I would be on guard, and I would also seek to conform your will to the will of God, and I would also seek to start doing the deeds that are in accord with the deeds of God. It's by his restraining grace alone that you're not an alcoholic, or you're not buying hookers if you're not already. Who knows? Luke 18. And he also told this parable to some people who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and viewed others with contempt. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and was praying this to himself: God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, swindlers, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast, blah, 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 blah. But the tax collector, standing some distance away, was even unwilling to lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, the sinner. I tell you, this man went to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Like if you're not an adulterer or an alcoholic or a swindler, it's because of God alone. God can remove his restraining grace and allow you to fall into that ditch. I have no goodness apart from you. Like it's from the Lord. You could have easily have been the most evil person that you have in mind. Also, you are also addicts. Just because you're not addicted to an external substance that's seen, like alcohol, doesn't mean you're not addicts and that you have addictions that manifest themselves in other forms. Like here, Luke 20, beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love respectful greetings in the marketplaces and in the chief seats and places of honor at banquets, who devour widows' houses and for appearance sake offer long prayers. These will receive greater condemnation. It's like you love respect. You love the praise of men. You love their affirmation. You're addicts. You love it. You seek it, you thrive after it, you're addicted to it. If you don't get it when you want it, it's like all hell breaks loose if that addiction isn't fed. So, religious Pharisees, you are also addicts, and you're setting yourself up to receiving greater condemnation than those who are addicts of um, alcohol that you can observe. So, that's going to be part 2. So, this concludes part 1, intoxicating drink and addiction. And then part 2 is going to be my religious Pharisee edition. So, stay tuned for that. Okay.